Geto was once the epitome of a sorcerer. He sought to protect the weak. He held his ideals firmly. He guided those along a path of righteousness. A man idealistic, a dreamer of a world where all could exist in harmony. How does a man with so much love for humanity forsake it and walk a path of annihilation? Love and hatred flow together and synergistically exist. An individual like Geto was always just steps away from evil as he towed the line of good. This is what makes his character so incredibly dynamic, and seeing him once again within the anime so full of light and love, it reminded me of my deep fascination with his character. There's something so real about his change, and if we were in his place and endured what he did, we may have followed the same path. Consuming curses, an ability of self-aggression and paradoxical, he consumes that in which he hates in order to protect those who don't even know of his existence. The life of a sorcerer is thankless, it's brutal, it ends in death. However, for whom much is given, much is required. Blessed with being one of the strongest alongside his best friend Gojo, he accepts this fate because he believes it to be the right thing to do. After all, why have this power if he can't protect the powerless? When faced with the opportunity to eradicate all of the Star Religious group alongside Gojo, they easily could have. In fact, Gojo would have likely felt nothing at all. However, time and time again, Geto guides Gojo away from this path and reminds him of the true duty of a Jujutsu sorcerer. The duty of protecting the very people Geto would soon refer to as monkeys, a term seared into Geto's memory from the man who changed everything. Toji, a man born without any curse energy and a heavenly restriction enabling his senses to be heightened and his physicality to be unrivaled. This non-sorcerer, this monkey, he took everything from him. His pride, his view on the world, his stance of a sorcerer. Everything changed with the death of Riko. Upon Riko's decision, Geto alongside Gojo would enable Riko to walk free and live her life as she sees fit, even in the face of the Jujutsu world. This would theoretically come with the consequences of having to face off versus the Jujutsu world, but they had no fear or hesitation. After all, they're the strongest. Within just a few days they got to know and love Riko, who had so much light and love for the world. She was subjected to a fate required of her by the Jujutsu world, to merge as a vessel, to lose her sense of identity, to be consumed. I believe this is where the cracks began. The Jujutsu world wasn't even fair to the innocent. Geto accepted this unjust world as a sorcerer himself, but Riko's life shouldn't be subjected to this dogma. It should be different. However, her life is treated as meaningless and nothing more than a commodity by the higher-ups. Inevitably, Riko was killed by Toji, and the evisceration of him and his best friend further spreads the cracks. They were no longer the strongest, but soon an awakened Gojo would be. In a year's time, Gojo would be going on missions alone, leaving Geto behind to watch as his best friend surpassed him and distanced himself from him due to this unrivaled strength. Gojo could do anything. He's the strongest. He's limitless and unparalleled, but he can't save his best friend from himself. Despite his eyes seeing all, he's unable to see the cracks within Geto. Exercise, absorb. Exercise, absorb. A cycle he repeats, but for whom? Those in which use him as a pawn and hold no regard for his life or others? With thoughts spinning in his head, he tells himself not to lose his way, that he knew it would be like this, that he had to protect them, to follow through with his duty. Battling these thoughts alone, he was bound to lose. Such noble and impersonal altruism as Geto was never meant to survive in a selfish world of Jujutsu sorcery. Although I don't blame Yuki for feeding into his ideology, he's undoubtedly heavily influenced by her words. To eradicate curses, they would need to make the world full of only sorcerers. That the easy path would be killing all non-sorcerers, and Yuki doesn't dissuade him from this idea. She tells him that the part of him that looks down on non-sorcerers and the part of him that tries to resist that feeling, that he alone would need to decide for himself. And that he soon does. As his view of regular humans' weakness and preciousness grows into an indistinguishable blur, this invariably pushes him towards his radical nature. A part of me believes that a motivation for his desire to rid the world of curses lies within his wish for Jujutsu sorcerers like himself, Nanami, Gojo, and his late friend Haibara to live a normal, peaceful life instead of pawns for the preservation of the world. Geto always has wanted to protect the weak, and I don't think his view has ever changed. Rather, it's shifted. Sorcerers' lives are thrown away for the sake of non-sorcerers. They are merely tools and commodities. To Geto, he wants to protect sorcerers like himself and free them from the endless suffering that is Jujutsu sorcery. A thankless job resulting in the endless death of sorcerers from curses that non-sorcerers create. Despite everything he's done to embody what he at one point thought to be the ideals of Jujutsu sorcery, none of it meant anything. He spent his life trying to help others and never helping himself. Now he, like many other characters within the story, chooses to be Greedier. With Geto's massacre of a village, he meets one last time with Gojo, and Gojo finally sees what's become of his best friend and they argue ideologies. The sweet Geto we once knew now is calloused and darkened by the world. He's unable to be swayed by his previous ideals he instilled in Gojo. What Geto wants now is an impossibility. However, if he was Gojo, then this impossibility would become a reality. Strength is isolation, and this isolation led both of these classmates down vastly different paths. Gojo is the strongest, but he can only save those who are prepared to be saved. being strongest isn't enough. All this time, Gojo neglected Geto and couldn't see how much he was struggling. Geto time and time again tried to steer Gojo on the right path and be a voice of reason, however, Gojo couldn't do the same for him. If Gojo hadn't isolated himself since his awakening, then perhaps Geto would still be on the side of Jujutsu sorcery. What Geto needed was a friend to be there for him when he started to slip, when the glass began to crack. With voices swirling in his head, there were none to quell his shadow from coming out. The intense resentment building over the years from being the martyr, the thankless good guy. It built, and the ideals he held once so firmly now betrayed him. Once more I pose the question. If you were in his shoes, would you too lose yourself to the void? Jujutsu High failed Geto. Even Yuki, a fellow special grade and someone who should be a mentor, she fed into his dark side and didn't do anything to quell it. Leaving this moral quandary in the hands of a 17-year-old who has suffered so much is irresponsible, and I only wish someone would have stepped in to help. However, time and time again we know Jujutsu sorcery is a selfish world. You live alone, you die alone. No matter how lofty Geto's ideals, even an angel can fall from the heavens. Indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one. The gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel so you can see more videos just like this. This has been hiXtrah, and as always, be greedier, and I will catch you all next time.